I'm Scott Ott, and this is Bill Whittle. Now, from the gaming community, a conservative meme. Bill, can you hardly believe it? Have you heard of the phenomenon known as NPC?
I swear to God, I have never ever influenced your choice of topics before, but I was going to ask you after we were done with this, can we please do one on NPCs?
Great minds, I'm telling you. And frankly, several of our viewers have suggested this as a topic as well. But I saw it this morning on a BBC News story, believe it or not. So this is elevated to that level. What started out as a 4chan meme on the POL or Paul subforum or forum on 4chan, as well as the subreddit The Donald on Reddit, has in 24 hours became a phenomenon that was tweeted 30,000 times in a single day. And basically the point of it is NPC stands for non-player characters. And this is an insult basically toward leftists who behave by rote as if some artificial intelligence was guiding their behavior. Now, Bill, I am not a gamer, so I guess I want to get from you, who is a gamer, what your sort of gut reaction was when you first heard about the NPC phenomenon.
As we mentioned in another show, when I first heard of social justice warriors being called NPCs, I thought perfect. The same way first time I heard virtue signaling and relative good and other terms that just immediately just hit home. NPCs hit home, and that's why they're so effective. And the main reason that you should stay and watch this show, my friends, is because it really, really, really drives the left crazy, and they don't have far to go. So here's a little bit of the backstory. People are talking about NPCs as if they're computer game characters, and they are, but they go back further than that. They go back to before computer games, back in the olden times when we used to basically rub pieces of wood together and pretend that they were giant mammoths and stuff. My earliest recollection, and I suspect this is probably the birth of them, but I'm not sure, was in Dungeons and Dragons in the 70s. I never played much Dungeons and Dragons, but I did play a science fiction version of Dungeons and Dragons called Traveler, where you sat around the table and you throw dice and your characters get to make decisions the way you do in a modern video game, but there was no video game. So you've got a player who's either the dungeon master or the referee, and he's got a story, and he's guiding 5 or 6 players through this storyline to get a little adventure out of it and have some fun. Great. But he's the referee, he's the voice of God, and he can't make his decisions just known. Lightning can't strike again and again and again. So what the game master, dungeon master, or the referee had to do was, in order to interact with the people who are actually playing the game, the 5 real humans, let's say, who are around a table, is he would have to create an NPC, a non-player character. And the non-player character would do things like deliver a piece of news, or maybe they'd argue with them about something, or maybe they wouldn't give them the spaceship ticket that they thought they were going to get, or whatever. It's the NPC is a gaming's, they used to call them spear carriers, the guys in the old epic movies who would just stand there with their spears and just, they're extras, basically. They're extras with one line. They're the guy that delivers the pizza in the movie. So far, so good. So this character, this non-player character, is essentially it's not even hardly even a one-dimensional person. It is a cutout of an image of a person who has 1 or 2 lines that suit exactly what he's supposed to be saying, and then gone forever, and you never see him again. Most of them don't have names. So this is such an effective way to tell a story, is having the person telling the story being able to control other characters in the story who are not real players. So NPCs migrated into video games, and they're very effective in video games. And when you see games like Grand Theft Auto or anything like that, whenever you see whenever you're shooting bad guys, virtually all the time, unless it's a team match, you're shooting a non-player character. It's generated by the computer. It has no personality. It has no thought, no real anything.
My understanding, Bill, is that if you run into a non-player character, he may say something, and then if seconds later you run into him again, he's likely to say exactly the same thing.
This is why NPC is so perfect for them. So here's basically how the term got applied to social justice warriors. Let's say that it's a computer game, and I'm a non-player character, and I'm a social justice warrior, and I go up to somebody and I say to them, "Hey, could you tell me what time it is?" And they say, "Socialism is the answer." I'm sorry. I was just wondering if you could maybe tell me the time, because I need to get to the train station. Can you give me some directions to that? American soldiers are warmongers and killers and psychopaths. Okay. Know of a decent place to eat anywhere? Socialism is the answer. Okay. How about this? How you doing today? You having a good day? Capitalism is evil and wrong and is a blight on humanity and causes incredible suffering. Really? Socialism is the answer. Really? American soldiers are all killers and psychopaths and warmongers. And that's it. They have literally, you'll go up to a guy who's behind a bar or he's in a tavern or something, and you'll interact with that guy, and there will be three choices. Say hello, ask for a beer, say goodbye. And the answers are so canned that this is the point of all this, now 10 minutes into this story. The point of the whole calling social justice warriors NPCs is that they are so robotic in their thinking. They're so limited in their thinking and their opinions. They don't think. That's the entire point. They're not thinking characters. They're simply robots that are repeating one or two or three options, some of the examples which I just gave, and trying to converse with them. You realize that they failed the Turing test. You familiar with the Turing test?
Yes.
Okay, so for those of you out there who are not familiar with the Turing test, the great computer scientist Turing was asked, how could you tell if artificial intelligence was actually achieved? And he came up with an extraordinarily good answer. He didn't talk about megabytes or teraflops or anything, nothing like that. He said, if I could have a conversation, a typed conversation or a spoken conversation, but if I could have a conversation with an artificial intelligence for half an hour and not be able to tell that it's a computer, then that's artificial intelligence. And it's a superb answer. Because when you have a conversation with somebody, you often run off on things like, oh, the Gators, they're looking a little better, but it's a terrible start to the season. And then a real person would say something like, yeah, well, it's not the spur of your days. Or they would say, well, I don't really follow football or something. But, an NPC says, socialism is the answer. What do you think about the game against Tennessee? Socialism is the answer. And this is the entire point of it. They fail the fundamental intelligence test that was designed to see if you're talking to a real person or not. They don't just fail it, they fail it spectacularly. They have 3 or 4 canned answers on any given subject. They never change. They never vary from one person to another. And they're NPCs. And the best of all of this is that it drives them nuts. And the reason it drives the social justice warriors nuts is because they know it's true. And they're trying to have these things banned now. And if you use NPCs in certain posts, Facebook will take them down as hate speech. Good.
Well, and that's what's happened next, because, what you're reminding me of, even though I'm not a video gamer, is this doll that we got for our kids that was from Toy Story. We had this Woody doll, and it had a drawstring, and you pull the string, and, it had 8 things that it could say, and one of them was, there's a snake in my boot. And that's
perfect.
That's all it could do.
That's perfect. That's exactly what an NPC is. It's a great example. An NPC is one of those pull string dolls, and you pull the string, it says something, and wow. You pull the string, it says something else. Like, wow. You pull it 3 or 4 more times, you hear 4 or 5 new things, and you pull it like a 7th time, and it says the first thing again. And you go, wait a minute. It's also another great example of the NPC phenomenon is the magic 8 ball, right?
Oh, yes.
I would like a question to, should I purchase this house? Shake, 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 signs indicate yes. But after a short time, you realize there's only, 12 sides to that floaty dice.
Dodecahedral die.
Yeah. So you are going to get a random reply of a very small number of set responses. And that is exactly what the modern progressive left is. It's a series of pre-written scripts that they simply regurgitate on demand. And I've had this personal experience, why I love this topic so much. I've had the personal experience of talking with many of these people. And when you ask them a specific question that is outside of the bounds of their script, they simply stop dead. They stop. And I'll give you a super quick example, and we'll call it a day. I was, just before I started doing this political work, I was working as an editor in a TV show in Hollywood. And surrounded by liberals. I was the only conservative on the whole floor. And I think it was my second to last day at work. I'd been there for 5 years, and I was going to start this PJTV thing. And I was in the kind of the common room where you're making coffee, and they'd hired a new producer, young woman, millennial woman, and I went in, I said hi, and she didn't say hi back, she didn't say how are you, what's your name, nothing. I said, hey, how are you? And she said, you must be that conservative I've heard about. I said, yeah. Good to meet you too. And without any other introduction, she says, so I suppose you don't care about protecting the climate, huh? And I said, what climate do you want to protect? I said, do you want to protect the 2008 temperatures? Do you want to protect the 1970 temperatures? Do you want to protect the temperatures of the 1860s? Do you want to protect the temperatures of the Little Ice Age? Do you want to stabilize the temperatures at the Renaissance, at the medieval warm period? Do you want Ice Age temperatures? Do you want the temperatures 88 million years ago when the center of the U.S. was under, a mile of water? Which climate do you want to protect? Because the Earth's like a heartbeat, and you're trying to put a pin in it. So which climate is it that we need to protect? You know what she did, Scott? If it had been a Star Trek episode,
she engaged you intellectually and asked you questions and responded.
Said, "Well, that's actually fascinating. I hadn't thought about that." Now, if it had been a Star Trek episode, her medallion would have started flashing and smoke would have started coming out of her ears. But since it wasn't, she just looked at me and she just turned and walked away, because that's all she had left. They don't know how to think about things. They've not been taught how to think about things. They've been told what to think. And when you get them off the script, it's shocking. And our friend Tammy Bruce said to me once at an event early on, I want to say 2009, 10, right at the beginning of the Tea Party movement. We were at the same event. We're walking out afterwards, and she said, has it ever occurred to you, Bill, just how easy it is to flip these people? I said, I hadn't really thought about it that way, Tammy, but you're absolutely right. It's 10 minutes. It's a 10-minute job. She goes, yeah, they everything they believe is this deep. And once you ask 2 or 3 questions and they have to start answering questions, it's all over for them.
So this non-player character phenomenon, this NPC phenomenon that started on 4chan and the Donald subreddit, moved to Twitter. Twitter has, in fact, banned a lot of these accounts. And here's what they're banning, though, Bill. It's not just mention of NPC, because the folks who are advancing this, largely Trump supporters, have decided to create a bunch of Twitter accounts that are just non-player characters.
Awesome.
And they're regurgitating this information. So, that flood of 30,000 in 24 hours, many thousands of those were fake accounts that were essentially being shut down. Here's my question for you, though. As we, say that we want to have a more constructive civil dialogue in this country, do we run the risk through this kind of hijinks, this kind of shenanigans, do we run the risk of looking cruel and not really interested in constructive dialogue, but we're lapsing from satire into vicious mockery?
Well, I don't want to look cruel, Scott. I want to be cruel. The problem with this country today is that there are no consequences for your actions, ever. You want to get up an Antifa mask and start smashing buildings and windows and setting cars on fire? Doesn't matter. You just go home and you get to brag about it with your friends and make some Facebook posts about it. There are no consequences. And I'm not joking about this. When you have people that are espousing the kind of philosophy that has killed 200 million people worldwide and has sent the Venezuelan people into, 4,000% a month inflation or whatever. They're eating the animals in the zoo. They're eating their pets. When you have people walking around just fervently pushing an ideology like that, which obviously they don't understand, I don't want them just to think that they're wrong, because this is not a world of rational debate that we live in anymore. Now it's a world of emotion. It's the republic of emotion out there. And so I don't want them to think that they're wrong. I want them to be ashamed of themselves. I want them to be ashamed of having this socialist, social justice warrior, progressive viewpoint. I want them humiliated, and I want them ashamed, because you think, oh, well, that's no way to convince somebody. That's no way to get somebody on our side. I hate to beg to differ with you, but you're absolutely right. That is no way to get a reasonable person to your side. A reasonable person can be convinced by reason. These people think reason is a construct of dead white slave owning males, and there is nothing that they have any respect for except their own virtue. That's all. That's all they understand. It's not their fault. They didn't grow up that way. They were taught that by their progressive teachers. But they have one response, which is an emotional response. And since that is the hand that I am dealt, then that's the hand I'm going to play. If you cannot rationally talk about what you believe, and if you simply go to 4-year-old chanting, which is also 60-year-old, 4-year-old chanting, right? Hey, hey, ho, ho, there's something's got to go. It's like, you can't even come up with your own chants, for God's sakes. It's what is it, 4 words, 5 words? When we're dealing with people like this, there's only one thing that actually punches through, and it's not logic, it's ridicule. And this is a weapon that I intend to use as flamboyantly as I possibly can.
The right plans and crafts legislation. The left leaves it to chance. This is Bill Whittle Now, 5 days a week here at BillWhittle.com, made possible by the members, and there's not an NPC among them. These are
Not
all
one.
active players in the culture war, if you want to call it that. They are active in the public civil dialogue, and they have found ways to spread this word around the world.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but this subject you just touched on is critical, and I'm not trying to be complimentary for the sake of being complimentary. I genuinely mean this. I've had a chance to talk to so many people who come to my events, and whenever I meet a member, I just warm up because they keep all this stuff happening, and they are without question the most interesting people I've ever met, ever. They are so expert in so many different fields, and they're so quiet about it, and they're so unpretentious about it. And it's just an absolute joy to meet members on the road. It's my favorite thing in the whole world, and I've never met a finer bunch of people. The people that have been associated with me since I've been doing this have made me into a far, far, far better person than I ever was when I got started.
Well, if we can't meet you in person, we'll meet you right here tomorrow. This is Bill Whittle Now. I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making it possible.